A general election was held in Sweden on the 17th of September 2006, to elect members to the Riksdag, the Swedish national legislature. All 349 seats were up for election. 310 fixed seats in 29 constituencies and 39 adjustment seats, used to ensure that parties have representation in the Riksdag proportional to the share of the national vote. The electoral system used was semi-open list proportional representation using the Sainte-Laguë method of allocating seats. Elections for county and municipal councils were also held on the same day. Fredrik Reinfeldt from the moderate party was able to form a majority government together with the Centre Party, Liberal People's Party and the Christian Democrats following the election. The Social Democrats were ousted after 12 years in power. It was the country's first majority government since the Social Democrats alone held a majority between 1968 and 1970. The contenders for government, the minority government of Göran Persman's Social Democratic Party attempted and failed to gain enough seats to form a majority government, to continue as a minority or to govern in a red-green coalition government. His party had been in power since the 1994 election, and Persson had been Prime Minister since 1996. The Social Democrats before the election had an agreement with the Left Party and the Green Party that gave them an influence on government policy in exchange for the support. However, both the Left Party and the Green Party insisted that any red-green government formed after the election would need to include them in a coalition. The four centre-right parties, the Moderate Party, the Liberal People's Party, the Christian Democrats, and the Centre Party, united in Alliance for Sweden, succeeded in gaining enough seats to form a coalition government. The four parties had presented a joint election manifesto. The candidate for Prime Minister was the Moderate Party leader, Fredrik Reinfeldt. The election campaign. The campaigning for the 2006 election began early, as the opposition decided to present itself as a viable alternative government by forming an alliance for Sweden. This alliance was negotiated at a meeting held in the village of Hogfors, home to the chairman of the Centre Party, Maud Olofsson. The meeting ended on the 31st of August 2004 with the presentation of a joint declaration outlining the principles under which the four parties intended to run in the election. 1 year later a similar meeting was held at Bankaryd, home of Göran Hägglund, leader of the Christian Democrats. See Alliance for Sweden for further information. The alliance enjoyed a leading position for over a year over the red-green parties, according to most polls. However, the gap between the two blocs began to close rapidly in January 2006, and the red-green parties took the lead in May 2006. Indeed, they were ahead of the alliance in every poll conducted in May and June. However, there was a late shift in opinion back to the alliance during the summer. In mid-August, all polls showed the alliance leading the red-green parties comfortably. Unemployment. The Social Democrat government's perceived failure to reduce unemployment was a major issue in the campaign, especially considering the good performance of the Swedish economy. The opposition also argued that real unemployment was much higher than the official figure of 4.8%. They quoted a figure of 1,037,000 for those who are outside the labor market because they do not have a job or are studying. If those who are wholly or partially outside the labor market are included, then the figure rises to 1,700,000. This gloomy view of the unemployment situation was raised by Jan Edling, a former economist for the Swedish Trade Union Confederation. However, compared with other OECD countries, Sweden has a low broad unemployment, as was pointed out by the Green Party's Peter Eriksson in the debate. Alliance for Sweden proposed to address the problem by cutting income tax for the lowest paid, cutting the payroll tax, and making wages paid for household work tax deductible. Critics of the proposed tax cuts said that, because they are funded by reducing unemployment benefit and sick pay, they would attack the most needy in society rather than helping them, as Alliance for Sweden claimed. In addition, the Centre Party proposed a special youth contract of employment for those aged under 26, allowing the term of employment to be ended by their employer up to 2 years after they begin work. This controversial proposal was intended to increase youth employment by making taking on new employees less risky for the employer, but it was criticized by the red-green parties as reducing job security for the young. A similar contract introduced by the French government caused angry demonstrations and riots in France. In a debate article in Göteborgs Posten on the 21st of March 2006, Wanneland B. Wedin, chairperson of LO, wrote, "New proposal to abolish job security for the young will not result in more jobs. It will only lead to increased insecurity and an even larger exclusion." More than half of youths under 25 who work already have an insecure job, a time-limited job of some sort. This is most usual among our young female members. The most insecure jobs need employment, or the so-called phone and run locum, is entirely on the employer's terms. Every morning many people sit and wait for their employer to ring. Am I needed today or not? Olofsson replied 2 days later in the same newspaper. What LO's chairperson has not understood is that those youths who already have a job are not covered by our proposal. It does, however, give a new opportunity for the 146,000 youths who are wholly or partially living in the exclusion the Social Democrats have created. One of the main reasons why companies don't take on new staff is that the risk is too large. If the gamble doesn't pay off, then the costs are too great. By lowering the threshold for job creation, we are convinced that many youths will be able to take the first steps onto a labor market that they, today, have never been able to set foot on. We are equally convinced that the great majority of these youths will show their employers that they were right to dare to employ them. A survey carried out by the Confederation of Swedish Enterprise indicates that 41% of Swedish companies believe that such a contract would increase the willingness to hire young people to a great extent, and that 51% believe that it would increase it to a certain extent. 7% of those surveyed said that they did not think that they would be more willing to hire. Computer break-in by Liberal People's Party members on the 4th of September 2006, only 2 weeks before the general election. The Social Democratic Party reported to the police a computer break-in into its internal network. It has been reported that members of the Liberal People's Party copied secret information, not yet officially released, on at least 2 occasions for the purpose of counter-attacking Social Democratic political propositions. On the 5th of September, the Liberal Party secretary Johan Jakobsen voluntarily resigned. Leading members of the party and its youth organization are under police investigations suspected for criminal activity. Pre-election opinion polls. The charts below show the results of pre-election polls conducted by the 5 major polling institutes in Sweden. TEMO has a summary of all polls conducted since the election in 2002 and is therefore cited as the reference for each poll. TEMO SIFO Demoskop score Pruib results. The final results were published on the 21st of September 2006 by the Swedish Election Authority. Apart from separating the minor parties, there were no big changes to the preliminary count from the election night. 6,892,009 people were eligible to vote in the election. The results are here compared with the 2002 election. 3 hours after the polls closed, the result was clear enough for moderate party leader Fredrik Reinfeldt to declare himself the victor and for Göran Persson to announce his resignation as Prime Minister and as leader of the Social Democratic Party. The four centre-right parties of Alliance for Sweden formed, as expected, a government with Fredrik Reinfeldt as Prime Minister. The Speaker had asked Reinfeldt to begin this formation on the 19th of September but, as is usual, requested the cabinet of Göran Persson to stay on as a caretaker government until the Riksdag formally elected a new Prime Minister. The newly elected Riksdag convened on the 2nd of October and the government was presented on the 6th of October. The election result is historic in being the worst result for the Social Democrats ever in a general election with universal suffrage and the best result for the moderates since 1928. Minor parties that are not represented in the Riksdag got a total of 5.7% of the votes, which was an increase of 2.6 percentage points compared to the 2002 election. Behind this increase lay a great success for the Sweden Democrats, gaining 2.9% and thus surpassing the limit for gaining governmental financial support for the next 4 years. Two new parties, Feminist Initiative and the Pirate Party, also contributed to the increase. Of the 349 elected Riksdag members, 164 are women. Interpretive maps.